listener production.
Hey, Tara Cassidy with you, and welcome to The Briefing. Last year, at least 10 people were killed as a result of police pursuits in Australia, prompting fresh calls for change around how and when they're carried out. But now one of the states with some of the strictest regulations in the country is reviewing them again after a growing spate of car thefts and crime, not less. So what's the answer?
Of the people killed in those accidents, about 64% were the offenders. Policing, unfortunately, is an occupation that involves risk, and risk to the police, but also risk to the public. There has to be a balance between enforcing the law on this side or, letting people run rampant on the other side.
That chat with a former police officer and crime researchers coming up in the second half of this episode. First, though, let's get into the headlines with Chris Spiru. It's Wednesday, the 21st of May.
Hey, Tara, and to you listening. Time for a bit of acting. It's okay. Mum and Dad might get back together. It's just a separation, not a divorce. One of them's doing better now, so they've decided to part ways. Oh, these are all the phrases that are still swirling around this morning after the coalition split yesterday, with plenty of high-profile pollies and ex-pollies, including former Prime Minister John Howard, offering up some relationship advice.
Well, I don't think it will last forever, but it's a stupid move. Our glory days are when we work together. So I would say to both the parties, remember that. And if you've got policy differences, which inevitably you have, resolve them.
The wise words of John Howard there speaking on 9.
Yeah, and of the key policy differences, Nationals leader David Littleproud says that the split was triggered by a lack of guarantees on a couple of things like nuclear, powers to break up the big supermarkets if they're doing the wrong thing, and more regional funding, while Liberal leader Susan Lee says it was actually over disagreements relating to key shadow cabinet positions, especially those relating to climate. But neither have ruled out the possibility of a future coalition.
We won't be forming a coalition, but we want to, and we remain open to it.
Hopefully before the next election we can reaffirm a coalition agreement.
Now, it's not the first time that this century-old alliance has been broken. It's actually happened 3 times before, but the most recent one was in 1987, so still a long way back. But if you're hoping that they'll get back together, there's still a chance. We've seen it happen before. Watch this space.
Around 1 million Sydney-siders who catch the train are being told to avoid non-essential travel this morning after a power outage began causing massive delays during peak hour yesterday afternoon. Part of the train's rooftop connector became tangled with an overhead power line that had fallen, trapping up to 300 passengers inside and triggering delays on 80% of Sydney's train network yesterday.
Yeah, wow. And look, emergency and engineering crews have worked through the night to try and fix the problem. And while most train lines are set to reopen this morning, New South Wales Transport is warning the delays and gaps will be ongoing, but they've organised some bus replacements as well. Now, it's all still under investigation, but that non-essential travel warning we mentioned still remains. So if you want to get to work on time today, probs, get a cab, the bus, or on your bike you go.
Yeah, and also work from home. I mean, please, guys, take full advantage of work from home while it's still around. And I will just say this very quickly. Thank God I got out of this building on time yesterday and I managed to skip all of this, because some of the pictures and videos that I saw of Central Station in Sydney, which is a 25-platform station, it's literally its namesake, it's a very central station, hundreds and hundreds of people were lining up on the street. It looked chaotic and, like I said, very, very grateful I was already home.
Ben Roberts-Smith has been labelled reckless and brazen by the judges reviewing his defamation case appeal, saying part of the reason he lost the battle is, unlike most homicides, there were 3 eyewitnesses to this murder. In 2023, the SAS veteran was found on the balance of probabilities to have committed war crimes when deployed to Afghanistan, where he killed a man donning a prosthetic leg with a machine gun in front of other soldiers. Last week, 3 justices agreed that Roberts-Smith was not defamed by 9 newspapers and journalists Nick McKenzie and Chris Masters, who first reported on the crimes back in 2018.
Yeah, the federal court handed down its decision on the appeal on Friday, ordering Robert Smith to pay costs, which have been estimated to be around $40 million, with their reasoning published yesterday. Robert Smith continues to deny the allegations and is now taking the decision to the High Court.
2 New South Wales men have been jailed for 6 years over a number of robberies carried out against several men met through the dating app Grindr. It follows a spate of attacks against gay and bisexual men also linked to similar apps across various states and territories over the last year.
Yesterday in Sydney, 41-year-old Andrew Tanswell and 37-year-old George Leilua were handed jail terms with non-parole periods between 4 and 5 years. The New South Wales judge found the men purposefully made the Grindr accounts under false pretences before robbing their 5 victims of over $20,000 while armed and making threats. Grindr is now showing alerts on its app, warning users about the attacks happening across the country.
The impact of the cost of living crisis on some Aussies has been laid bare in a new report by the Salvation Army, revealing people are finding it tougher than ever to afford the basics.
50% of people surveyed could not afford prescription medication. 20% were living in darkness because they had to turn the lights off to save power.
Salvo's Major Bruce Harmer speaking there.
Of those who reached out to the charity for help, more than half are also skipping meals and nearly a quarter are eating expired food, with 62% of parents going without food so their kids could eat. Now, Tara, this was a survey done on over 3,500 people who actually get their food, financial help or other items from the Salvos. And they actually found that 90% of those people said that they couldn't cope without the help of the Salvos.
Wow.
It's actually like a really sad thing to be reading. And I know cost of living pressures is on for most of us, but I would just say this. We're heading into winter. It's getting really cold here in Sydney. It's getting cold in other parts of the country as well. Where you can, donate anything. If you can support a local food pantry, if you can support a clothing drive, if you can do anything, just, spare a thought for those people.
Once I make my move, the Queen will take me. Then you're free to check the King.
No. Ron, no!
And in some far less dramatic chess scenes that'll make you feel a little less or maybe more intelligent this morning, the world's best chess player has finally met his match when playing against a combined 143,000 people. Oh my gosh, Norwegian chess master Magnus Carlsen played the unprecedented Magnus Carlsen vs. the World match against enthusiasts across the globe beginning in early April. And it's the first time Carlsen's played against the general public at all, and he was forced to draw.
Okay.
So he didn't even lose, he just drew after Team World checked him in a move that he couldn't escape. And look, not only that, apparently the team from around the world also had help from renowned chess coaches, and they were offering them analysis and tips throughout the mega match as well. I'm like, oh my gosh, be more impressive, honestly. That's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And honestly, I wish this existed at the time that I was in primary school, because I actually went to school with a chess champion and he was annoyingly so freaking good. And we would do these things. We'd all team up against him. We would never win. So congratulations to the world today. This is a huge win. But
Damn
also
intelligent people.
Yeah, I know. But coming away with a draw, very, very impressive. Kudos to him. Hey, look, that brings our headlines to a close. Coming up next, Tara, is your deep dive looking into police pursuits. They stop crimes but also cause deaths. And are they needed? Are they worth it? Stick around to find out more.
Harry Jokinen is a 56-year-old dad from Canberra. He's slim with black glasses, light brown hair and a friendly smile. In the photo I'm looking at, he's hugging his partner of 8 years, Elizabeth Tite, as they pose for the camera in one of their last moments together. In 2021, Harry was killed in a head-on collision after a man driving a stolen Commodore up to 200 kilometres an hour struck him during a police pursuit. Just one death of dozens stemming from police chases in recent years. And while they remain legal in every state and territory, the rules do vary a lot. In places like Queensland, where there's stricter regulations, there's over 100 police pursuits a year. In New South Wales, it can be thousands. Between 2022 and 2023, there were 3,762 police pursuits, 6 fatalities and 72 injuries. And for every pursuit that ends in injury or death, there's fresh inquests and calls for change, but seemingly no one able to agree on how. Joining me today to discuss why that is and what should happen is Bond Uni's Dr. Terry Goldsworthy, an Associate Professor of Criminology who's also worked as a police officer for several decades himself. Dr. Goldsworthy, thank you for joining me on the briefing. Do you think police pursuits should be allowed or not?
Look, I do think they should be allowed. There's a lot of controversy around police pursuits, and that generally arises in terms of when there's a fatality as a result of the pursuits. What we know, I guess the best thing to do is look at the data, and what we know in Australia is that the Australian Institute of Criminology looked at police pursuits over a 8-year period, and it showed that there are in excess of about 4,000 police pursuits per year in Australia. And when you look at the amount of fatal accidents result out of that, it was about 0.4% of those pursuits resulted in a fatal accident. And of the people killed in those accidents, about 64% were the offenders. Policing, unfortunately, is an occupation that involves risk, and risk to the police, but also risk to the public. I mean, many policing operations have some kind of risk to the public. Now, police will do their utmost to keep that to a minimum, but, there has to be a balance between enforcing the law on this side or, letting people run rampant on the other side. People kind of think, you'll just get the helicopter up and follow them or whatever, throw the road spikes out and stop it that way. Helicopters are very expensive to run. They're not always up in the air. They need a lot of maintenance. They can only run limited hours. Road spikes are dangerous for the police to deploy. We've had police killed deploying road spikes, and they're not always effective. The offenders just simply drive around them. So it's not as simple as people think. You can't shoot out tyres or things like that. So I think it's a complex problem. The Queensland Police, as we speak, are doing an internal review of their pursuit policy, which we term a restrictive policy. It is problematic. I mean, people will go, well, look, in Queensland you haven't had any deaths from police pursuits. I don't know if that's the actual case, but certainly there'd be far less. Well, to me, that's almost like an oxymoron that, it's a self-answering question that, yes, if you don't pursue people, you're not going to have fatal accidents occur. It's like saying people, you can't ride bicycles. And then you go, look, we've had no bicycle fatal accidents. Of course you haven't, because no one's doing it. And we know they're not doing it because in 2006, there was something like 630 pursuits in Queensland. In 2023, we had 123. So they've been drastically reduced. If that's the case, then you'd expect that there'd be far less, if none, in terms of fatal accidents resulting out of that reduction.
It is legal nationwide to have police pursuits, but albeit with strict caveats in some states and territories like Queensland, where you can only conduct a police pursuit if there's an imminent threat to life. Can you tell me a little bit about what exactly is going wrong in these cases where there's been fatalities? Is it just the simple fact that they're being pursued and therefore the offenders are driving faster and risking more lives, or is it more intricate than that?
Some police make bad decisions. There was a series of 4 pursuits that resulted in fatalities in around 2010 in Queensland that led to this policy being adopted by Cabinet and put in place. One of those pursuits involved the police chasing a stolen car past a school at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, anyone with an ounce of common sense would go, that is dangerous, I need to stop the pursuit. The police in that case didn't. And, of course, that was held out to say, well, these things just need to stop, look how dangerous they are. Some common sense decisions aren't made by police. Pursuits are very fast in terms of how they occur. They involve high risk. They involve police making risk assessments under very stressful conditions. I mean, when you're sitting in a police car, sirens going, lights going, you're trying to get through traffic, you're trying to maintain where the stolen vehicle is, for instance, if you're chasing that. You're looking out for other cars, and you're also on the radio calling the chase to the control communications centre. You're also trying to figure out, should I keep pursuing this vehicle? What's going to happen here? So it is difficult. If you look around the offences that are typically associated with pursuits, and, we talk about stolen cars, dangerous driving offences, and in Queensland we have an evade police offence, which was put in place after we put our restrictive pursuit policy in place. What we've seen since that policy came into place is that the stolen vehicle rate in Queensland has increased. The rate of vehicles, so that's independent of population increase, has increased 73% in Queensland. So we went from 9,000 stolen cars in 2010 to 20,000 stolen cars last year. If you look at dangerous driving offences since 2010, they've increased 5% per year, the rate of offences. And if you look at evade police offences, we sit at about 5,000. It's going up each year. About 5,000 was the last figure I saw for a year period. And the figure given by the police to a parliamentary inquiry was that about 63% of those were unsolved. No one's getting caught, no one's getting charged. So the observation was made by former Commissioner Bob Atkinson when this policy was put in place. He gave evidence to the coronial hearing that led to this policy to a large extent. And even more recently, another senior officer gave evidence to a parliamentary inquiry in 2018. And what they said is there is a cohort of career criminals and hardened criminals who will very quickly realise that the police pursuit policy is restrictive. And what that will mean is that they will drive more dangerously quicker, because that'll stop the police quicker. And we have seen that. Certainly, anecdotally, we've seen people in stolen cars immediately drive onto the wrong side of the road at speed, knowing that the police will stop. The pursuit will be cancelled and terminated. So you then have to ask the question, are we causing offenders to drive more dangerously because they know they can get away easier if they do? And the other question is, how many of those stolen vehicles, given the fact we had an extra 12,000, how many of those stolen vehicles were driven in such a way that they resulted in a fatal accident killing someone? Again, that data is never made public in terms of how many of those extra stolen vehicles resulted in someone innocent being killed.
And while we're speaking about coronial hearings, just last week, coroner handed down some recommendations after another inquest that looked into the death of a Canberra man who died as a result of a police pursuit. And this coroner recommended that police mandate that they can only initiate a chase if it's safe and there's no risk to public safety. But is there ever going to be a scenario where police would be able to say that this is safe, there's no risk to the public? I'd assume that anytime there's people out on public roads, there's a risk.
No, it's essentially setting the police up to fail. I mean, if you say that there's a condition for you to do a pursuit that it must be safe, and you then have that event occur that someone's injured or the police themselves are injured, etc., I'd imagine the officer will be exposed to civil litigation, if not some kind of criminal charges for engaging in a non-safe pursuit. I mean, police in Queensland are not exempt from dangerous driving. They never have been, and they aren't. There's no assumption that they will be. So when they engage in a pursuit, it's what they call urgent duty driving. They are driving within the limits of the vehicle in terms of the warning lights. There's provisions there that you just don't go straight through a red light. You must come to a stop before you proceed through, and all of those type of things, which will render it safer but won't make it absolutely safe. And I think that shows a disconnect of the coroner if they're suggesting that you could ever make a police pursuit totally safe. It's just, it's not a reality that will ever occur.
Now, I've been to many an inquest, and often the recommendations that are handed down are the same as those given by coroners at other inquests before, and yet we don't really see these drastic changes, and then often similar mistakes are made again and again. What do you think needs to happen to actually make a difference?
Well, I think, if you look at coroners' inquests, they can make recommendations. They are that exactly. They're recommendations. So whether the police service or the government of the day instructs the police to adopt those is realistically, a hit and miss kind of event. When we had the recommendations come out in 2010 in Queensland, the government said they will be adopted, and they were. The recommendations need to be practical. So you need to have recommendations that will not be of such a nature that they will stop police from doing their job. So I think we really have created some issues for ourselves in terms of driver behaviour. I think it's going to be a very big challenge for policing, and pursuits form a big part of that driver behaviour because pursuits are deterrent. If you know the police are going to jump on their bike and chase you, you may well pull over. If you have the impression that I can easily stop them pursuing by driving more dangerously, when you go through the radar or the LiDAR, as they call them these days, you're just going to drive more dangerously and faster because you know they're not going to come after you.
It's an interesting point and some great insight, Dr. Goldsworthy. Thank you so much for joining me on The Briefing.
No, thanks, Tara.
That was former police officer and Associate Professor of Criminology, Terry Goldsworthy, speaking with me there about police pursuits and deaths in Australia. If you found this ep of The Briefing interesting, don't forget to leave us a comment or a review, or you can check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Tara Cassidy. See you next time.
Listener.